Anyone that's like taking 20 days to go from the first interview to the last interview is just doesn't have a process or belief that it can happen quickly. But I remember I hired 3 directors within an average of 8 days of meeting them. The best ones will be off the market 8 to 10 days. That's what the average is. It's not worth losing them.
Today I'm joined by the hiring strategist who has helped more than 1,700 businesses improve the way they recruit and grow their team. As employee number 12 at acquisitions.com, he helped the company scale past 100 employees and saw firsthand as director of recruiting what it takes to build teams at every stage of growth.
The first thing I think about is what problem is currently existing in the business that is preventing you from scaling. Because we really want to hire for pain, not just to hire. There's just a lot of beliefs that people think are holding them back. Pause and say, why are we hiring? What's the problem? And what level of person do we need based on the problem we're trying to solve?
We talked about making your first hires, how to evaluate candidates beyond the interview, and what it takes to build a hiring process that consistently brings the right people into the business from the very start of your business journey to also the scaling phase.
Their whole business was like struggling because of that. Like whether they were turn away business, couldn't scale, felt like they couldn't breathe. It's more of a marketing and sales funnel than it is anything else. It's like, you know how to do this, you just haven't done it before.
From someone who has worked with businesses, literally thousands of them, ranging from early stage founders to rapidly scaling companies, please welcome this episode's guest, founder of Tank Recruiting, Frank Lofaro. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So for people who don't know, I like to do a quick rap sheet at the start. So Frank has personally helped me a ton over the last year, and especially over the last couple months, kind of grow my team, but has also helped over 1,700 businesses on hiring and growth. So he helped acquisitions.com scale past 100 employees. And over the last kind of 8 years, has been doing everything, recruitment systems, leadership teams. And he's seen everything, I'd say, from like zero to like unbelievable scaled companies. And he's been doing it in a kind of portfolio way, which is why I'm so excited to have you on today for the gaming playbook. Yes, but I guess today is the game of scaling, hiring, and we're going to have some fun. But like, there's just so much we can talk about. So yeah, I'm ready to kick off. All righty.
Yeah.
So let's just start with, if you don't mind, how we met, because I think it was quite funny. So I was a lonely recruiter in the UK. I had no online friends. And I remember listening to a podcast that said, hey, shoot your shot. So what I sent you a connection request, and I don't know why you accepted. Do you mind telling that story? Because I think it was quite funny.
Yes. So I was working at acquisition.com at the time, and I was used to getting connection requests, but it wasn't as common from like a recruiter. Just I didn't have a position open for hiring recruiters, etc. And because of my background in recruiting, I just like getting connected with people. You would send me a connection, and basically we're like to the nature of, hey, I'm going to be in New York. Would love to actually meet you and like just jam. And I think it was the way and the timing at which you approached it. I was like, I didn't feel fan vibes. I didn't feel like I'm in danger vibes, like that meme. Like, I'm in danger, like, which can happen. And I'm a pretty outgoing person. So the way you came across, you seemed credible. You seemed like friendly. Just wanted to catch up. And I said yes. And then it turned into like, now we're scheduling and meeting up for a lunch in New York, which I have not really done that a ton of times in my life, like going out of my way to travel to meet somebody that I've never met before or barely even talked to. I think we talked maybe once or twice prior.
Yeah, we still had a video call, so you didn't go stranger on me, like
No.
just meet for the first time. But no, I
Yeah.
just, you don't understand what that did for me, because I just felt like, oh, this is so easy. I then just started connecting with anyone I wanted to, and I just expected that to happen, and then it did happen. So
Hey,
that
love that.
kind of happened in the behind the scenes on my side. It's like, oh yeah, you can just connect with people if you just ask nicely. And you was the first time I ever did an e-coffee. And that was like my whole shtick. I haven't told you this part. Like for the first 6 months of my business, like 2 years ago, anytime someone was like ahead, I was like, hey, e-coffee? And they were like, sure. And I was like, yeah, of course, that's natural. Apparently not that common. And that was like really useful for me. So we, just to fast forward, then reconnected probably what, 6 months ago now? Like, so we didn't really talk that much at all over the next kind of 2 years. And yeah, I'd love to just open up. So just for the people who've just clicked this on YouTube, because I like to address them sometimes, we are going to get into a lot of things. So I'd love to cover the first hire, the first kind of one hire to like the first 20, and then go from 20 plus, because there are different problems at different stages.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I'd love to know, how did you get started in recruitment?
Yeah. So I fell into it. I think most people that are recruiters fall into recruiting. I don't think it's a career path you choose.
Same here.
There's no college degree for that. It's maybe HR, but not recruiting. I just want to be a business guy, so I wanted to apply to sales jobs. And the company I applied to said, you can be a sales guy. You actually can come across pretty professionally, but you need to learn what we sell. So I had to start as a recruiter and then worked up into the sales job. So I started a company called AeroTech, one of the largest privately held recruiting firms in the world. Like they make 9 billion in revenue a year. Really good training program. They take kids out of school. I didn't even need a college degree. I don't know why I got biology, but I got it. And and then they put me through this rigorous training program. Most people don't even make it 3 months. I happened to make it 3 years, and trust me, there's a lot of pain that went into that. It was not as easy as it just sounds on at a high level. Like some tears were shed and beliefs were broken to get there. And then 3 years in, I saw an opportunity to work for two founders that had just started basically their own company, and the company was acquisition.com at the time. And the cool thing was, like, I was I was unsure why I was in the recruiting space until I saw that opportunity. I was like kind of looking up at God, like, what? Why am I in recruiting? How did I fall into this? And I'm like, the only way I could have gotten this job was if I was a recruiter. So they posted a job online, said, hey, we're hiring a recruiter for our team. I've been following them for 6 months because they are business. Um, they were speaking about their business practices and how they've scaled multiple companies, exited three of them for like $100 million net worth. And then I was like, cool, I'm going to join a company like this because I thought the opportunity to learn entrepreneurship from a scaling company was great. But then I got the opportunity to work with the portfolio companies. So I'm like, if I'm the recruiter for the Holdco and the Portcos, it's going to be like 10 times faster growth because I'm going to have so many different
Yeah.
at bats. And that was definitely true from when it comes to hiring, not just for one company and one culture, but a whole set of other companies and other cultures, and just the lessons there navigating that. So then I was there for 3 years, and um, again stuck with recruiting when I did the workshops, and now with my own business in tank recruiting. So
Love it.
wild,
Let's
yeah,
dig in. So we have a very weird parallel universe over here where and it's across the pond. I did 2 years. I fell into recruitment as well. And they also had a training course, which I did not need my business degree for. And after 2 years, I was like, this is quite good. And for me, I landed straight into 360 recruitment. So I was doing sales and recruiting from the start. But I
mm,
only did headhunting. So
mm,
when I started this business, so hired by marketing 2 years ago, I was like, okay, great. I will try headhunt to hire. And I was like, okay, this isn't working for some reason because when you are looking for mid-level roles, or like when I had my budget, because I was used to working with like super high budgets, it's just a completely different game. I kind of realized, okay, I really don't know as much as I thought I knew, and then just decided to not hire because I was like, I'm so hard. I just found it so hard for like a year. I basically had freelancers only, and I spoken about it a couple of times. For a good few months, I was thinking, okay, I will be a solopreneur, and that will be it. That's changed now. We've got like 10 employees, and big part to you over the last few months to kind of keep growing. And I want to flip that back to you. Like you had
yeah,
this experience working for the biggest private recruiting firm, but then you
mhm,
went to a much smaller company by headcount.
yeah,
So how was that different compared to the biggest private equity firm hiring? Because there's a completely different environment.
yeah. To clarify, it was a private like staffing firm, but
Thank you.
you're welcome. The reason the nuance there is actually my job was actually hiring temp to hire positions, so contract labor, which in nature is probably more difficult than hiring full-time roles because you're literally offering people a part-time gig or temporary gig, which it's very lucrative for the business, not so much for the employee that might not have a job in 2 months. So there's a lot of selling. I think the main difference I learned is I think when I was external trying to work with internal teams, I didn't understand why positions sometimes took so long to get filled, why decisions were like taking forever to get feedback. And when I got the chance to be internal, I realized because I had the leader that I had that was like, hey, we are prioritizing people in the recruiting, things can happen very quickly. There does not need to be more than a 24-hour delay on, hey, did you like the person? Yes or no. While I was external, I just was like, I don't know why they don't give us feedback right away. I just kind of got to wait and see if my candidate got the job or not. And I think the main lesson is there's just a lot of beliefs that people think are holding them back. And I think a lot of it starts with defining what the position is. So, as a recruiting agency, we were really good at qualifying positions and qualifying the company. As an internal recruiter, I got very good at making sure that we all understood the job before we go out to the market. And I had to lean in on like the experts on my team. Now, if we didn't have that skill internally, that required us to do more research and more interviews. Um, but I think the thing that underlined it all was speed. Like we operated quickly because we could, and anyone that's like taking, 20 days to go from the first interview to the last interview is just doesn't have a process or belief that it can happen quickly. Like as an example, I remember I hired 3 directors within an average of 8 days of meeting them. So like, and it's because my whole company and whole team was committed to like, if I meet them and like them, you're meeting them the next day, then the next person's meeting them the day after that. And then like it just we had an assembly line lined up in agreement. Versus like there's this as you get bigger, there's need for bureaucracy and delay, but I don't think it needs to be as egregious as it is now. Um, and the candidate experience is something I always prioritize too, because something
Yeah,
that people don't realize when you try to build your bench of talent, yes, you hire one today, and you might need to hire another in the future. But if you just burn the bridge of like the other 99 candidates you rejected, you probably can't go back to them. And burning the bridge can feel like ghosting them, slow communication, just bad experience overall. And I tried to treat my recruiting system like a almost like customer service for the candidate
for
and the
sure.
hiring man. Yeah.
And it worked really well for me. So I did that. Um, that was before we kind of engaged together with my first content writer position. So I asked everyone who I thought were really good that just didn't get the role that
Yeah.
if you wanted to get notified for the next one, just reply keep.
Nice.
And then when I opened the position again, I emailed all the people who said keep. She said I'm available. We interviewed, and she was the best out of the bunch. And now she's like super good. And it's funny. She wrote a post about that, and in the post she said when he emailed me back and said, "Oh, let me know if you want to be keeping." She was like, "Probably not going to be anything, but I'll do it anyway." I was like, "Whoa!" So like she was so not used to that, and still, even though I asked, she's like, "Probably nothing's going to happen," but then it did happen. So it made me think, how many people are just going through like candidates wise horrible, and I really mean like just horrible experiences, and they really don't have to. Like it feels like it's just either a lack of process or I guess in my experience, just they either understaffed, under resourced, or is just missing a trick. Like I really don't think the candidate experience has to be this way in any size company.
I agree. I know someone in my personal life that has been waiting for an update on a position for like 2 months, and like the recruiter just needs to let them know that they found out recently. It's like, oh yeah, we just moved to New York, so we're just gonna we're still the position's still open, but we're just gonna be moving some things around. It's like, how easy would it have been to just let the person know in the middle that's like, hey, we'll keep you posted. Things are still okay. You're in consideration. I just think there's a lot of reasons. I think it's number one is just probably just not priority. It's not thought of as the most important thing.
Yeah.
But then that ends up hurting their whole recruiting process because of the experience.
So let's
So
get into it. So when it comes to hiring,
yeah,
so my audience includes people who run, like I know one person, business is over 100 million in revenue. If you're listening, you know
nice.
who you are. And he enjoys these. We also have people who are thinking of starting their first business. And we have quite a few people who have like 10 to 50 employees. So I want everyone to be kind of fed today in a sense. So to use that word. So let's start with people who are looking to do their first hire or first few hires.
Yeah,
So I would like to ask you, where should I start? I'm trying to do my first hire. What should I begin to do first?
yeah. So the first thing I think about is what problem is currently existing in the business that is preventing you from scaling? Because we really want to hire for pain, not just to hire. So most of the time for founders like yourself, you have this kind of framework of it's time, money, or talent, where you have to just consider which is holding you back. Meaning, most of the time, you just need to get your time back. So we're gonna just hire somebody because you probably don't have money. So if you're starting, there's two ways to build a company. One is like you start from the top down, where you hire all the leaders, and then they hire the team because you just deploy cash and pay the director of sales, and they build out the team. But most companies, when they're bootstrapping at the start, they go from the bottom up. You hire a few people, and then eventually you start to get into the mid management, and then you build out your C-suite team, etc. Um, so you really want to hire for like what is taking you a lot of time that is low leverage, and or what is something you don't know how to do that it would take you too long to do that the business needs. So like if you're good at sales and fulfillment and you think a marketer would change the game, like go hire that.
So I actually saw a TikTok yesterday. Sorry to use that as evidence here, but someone said you can't like someone said like you cannot hire a good marketer because if they exist, they will have their own business. Now, it's a bit exaggerated, but I was started thinking about that. I was like, I'm wondering how many people are trying to hire something, which is like you can't afford that level of hire, and you need to learn that skill. Um, if that question makes sense. So, like, I'm wondering, is anyone making like hires where they're like, "Whoa, that's not what you should be hiring," even though that's a pain. There's this other pain you need to fix first. I'm wondering if you witnessed anything.
All the time. I think the most common mistake, people hire like a COO, and they just like, because they're like, oh, there's a bunch of administrative stuff to do. They hire like an operator, and like the COO they hired is like the last job they had was they were like a supervisor of a couple people. It's like, and they're paying this person 80K. I'm like, your COO is not an 80K hire. Like a
So
COO is like
explain
100.
that. So explain that to people who, because obviously they're trying to solve a problem that they have. Why not
Yeah.
hire this very experienced operator? So what's missing there?
Well, so the usually they don't define when operators are hired, they're usually not defining the role well. They're just giving them like a hodgepodge of things, which oftentimes could be just a low level associate. Example is most companies under 3 to 5 million don't need a COO. It's like you're not at the stage to have a proper COO. You can have an EA or a VA, but it's just the work they need to do and the impact they'll have on the business at the certain size is just not warranting of that caliber of hire. And then the problem is they're over titling people. So you give the person that starts at 80K who's never been a COO the COO title. Well, now he has nowhere to go for career progression wise. You kind of removed his gap. And then as you scale, you're going to have to demote that guy or they need to catch up. So what I find is most talent can't keep up with a fast growing business. If you can, great, you keep the job. But when they get to 10, 20, 50 million, odds are that person's not going to be able to scale the company anymore. And then you have to demote them, which feels worse. So,
Can
and
I
as far as
ask about?
marketing, just to speak on the marketing thing, marketers are some of the best hires and almost they pay for themselves. You hire the right one. The reason why is some people forget about the opportunity of like, everyone's afraid to go hire somebody and say like, oh, I don't want to pay them this much money. But I'm like, if they make you 20 million, wouldn't you be okay paying them 2 million? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but like, you have to think about like what's in it for the marketer. It's like, especially marketing people, if they're really good and they're worth their weight in gold, like, why not give them contingencies on like, hey, I pay you maybe 100K, but then you have an upside. If you actually grow my business to these mile markers, I'll give you, you know, 2 million at the end of the year.
Can I have
As long,
examples here? I'm wondering because I've literally just, and you kindly reviewed them, the compensation plans for like my revenue generated job titles, and I've only been doing it on the sales one, and those ones seem to make sense. Um,
yeah,
but you mentioned like that example, like I would happily get a 10x on a talent. I put in 2 mil, 20 mil comes out. But given that you've done a lot of these hires, or at least seen them, right? So what are some actual benchmarks here? I don't mind if you keep it US based, just so I can actually visualize. Like, should I be even thinking about finding a marketer that's worth 100 grand a year, or I don't actually know how much good marketers cost.
yeah. So generally speaking, the one I mentioned is more of like if you're hiring like your business is needing a marketing person and you maybe don't want to give equity away, you can kind of get creative of like, how do I get one of the best marketers in the world? It was like give them an opportunity not many people would give them, which is this $2 million upside, right? They would leave their own company potentially to get if they believe in you and the opportunity. And then you just reset it every year. So it's like, cool, you got me to 20. If you get me to 40, I'll give you 4 million. So you
It's like
just
a
keep,
compensation bonus plan,
yeah,
and you put a base that they're happy with. You're
yeah.
saying that that's a
That's
way where go on.
I was gonna speak to that's like a not everyone should do that. The normal, like when I hire directors of marketing, the normal thing I've seen is like a director of marketing means they could just have one person underneath them. There doesn't have to be a whole team. Usually in America, it's like 120 to 175K, depending on how big your company is. That's the base. And then usually it's like a 25 to 50% bonus based on the KPIs, mainly number of leads, like qualified leads brought in every month, and then the ROAS, like how efficiently did you spend my money to get those leads, and it's kind of like a multiplier. Um, but yet you usually have to pay a decent chunk for a solid marketer. But that person should be able to come in like batteries included, lead the strategy, and do all the stuff. Not look to you for like how do we scale ads and which channel do we go on for this avatar.
Yeah. I want to speak about over titling because I've been very I've also I'm saying TikTok a lot, but I remember watching a short it says don't over title people, and I was like, okay, I won't. So um, for us, it's like manager, content writer, specialist. Like these are roles where it's like the lowest of the low, but you can still get great compensation. But for me, there's no like head of outbound where
Yeah.
it used to be at the start, like, you're head of outbound, you're head of this. And I'm like, whoa. Like we as a team agreed we probably shouldn't do that because there is no head, there is no body for you to be ahead of. Like it's just you. So I've tried to be like, all right, you're just X. Um, could you maybe share why over titling is like so troubling? Because I see it a lot in my industry. So I see
Mhm.
people hire BD people, like all right, head of business development, but then the founder who has no sales advice is giving sales advice to your head of business development. So I'm like, that's a car crash waiting to happen.
Yeah. I think the first question to ask is like, who are you trying to serve with that? Are you using it to try to sell the person on the opportunity? And
Mm.
the quick like snapshot of it is like, have they held that job before? If not, you're letting them test drive your car
Yeah.
right now. So, I think the high level reasons of not doing it, number one, you're actually hurting the human themselves because when they go out to the market as a head of BD and then people look at what they actually did, it's like they weren't really doing that type of work. So it's going to be harder for them to get a job in the future when people look under the hood, if they're not doing that type of work, if you overtitle. Number two, you're hurting them and you by not having the opportunity to grow them or develop them. I remember we hired somebody, we undertitled them intentionally. They crushed their 90-day plan. So then we promoted them from manager to director because they showed us that they crushed. And they were actually a director, pseudo director prior, but we just didn't want to take the risk. And we're like, hey, if this goes well, we're happy to like revisit this in, 3 months or 6 months, which is good because then you get that growth opportunity, and that's you're protecting yourself. Um, the main thing is like if they haven't done the job before, it's like you're just risking it on your dime, and it it causes problems as you scale because you'll either, like I said, have to demote them, or you're now hoping this person figures it out, and it's at the risk of your business. So yeah, I would just you can always give them a promotion later. It's hard to take it away. That's
Yeah.
like it's
No,
very
it
hard
makes
to take.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not a good feeling, right? So, from the 1,700 businesses you've advised, I'm guessing many of them were from like 0 to 10 employees. I'm trying to ask a very open question here. Like, I'm guessing some of them were less than
It
10 employees.
ranges, but I would say
Sure.
the revenues are like 500K to 50 million. That's kind of what we saw. But like some people had no employees and some people had, 100, 200. But
Yeah, wow. So, I'm just curious for
yeah.
the 0 to 10,
Yeah.
because if someone's listening and they're in that bracket, I'm guessing there's certain problems that they have that others don't have. So I just want to ask you direct, like, if I'm in the 0 to 10 employee, give or take, like, what are the
Yeah.
biggest problems that you face?
Usually, I mean, you're probably hiring your friends or your family. And I'd say like if you're someone like zoom out a little bit and say like, let's learn a little bit about the regular recruiting practices and go to the market, like posting the job and just seeing what's out there. Um, it's as a general thing, the main thing I've seen is that they're hiring their friends and their family, which can hurt them, in the long run, just because 'cause you're not getting access to, like, the whole what is available out there, um, unless your friend is and your family's a gangster. Um, they over-index on I've seen it and I've done it myself. I over-index on how good of a human the person is versus how talented they are, and while culture and, character is very important, we shouldn't hire people that don't align that to that because you can't fix people. That's not our job as founders as much as we might like to do it. We sometimes lean in on, like, they're a good human, they're nice, and then you're now paying the time debt of having to, like, catch them up to speed of how to do their own job. Um so I think the two main mistakes is they don't get clear on what the person will do and hold a high standard before hiring. And then when they onboard people, I think I've seen so many problems get fixed with just like an accountability meeting, which is basically just telling people, here's what I expect you to do. and being very clear. It usually solves like 80% of problems. It's just the founder or the leader wasn't clear and they just didn't know they were making a mistake. But oftentimes we let problems fester and it's like easier to just be transparent. And you can really tell who a human is when you put them up against a wall and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. If they cower away and they say, they don't like feedback, it's like, that's already good. This person is not a fit. Like, they're not going to scale with you. But if they step up and you see that they have some, like, thanks for the feedback, I appreciate that. That's an indication you got someone it's worth developing further.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I try really hard to filter out anyone who's not a culture fit to save them time, me time in the interview process.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm biased, but I feel like everyone I've hired has been a very good culture fit, right? And now, not everyone has worked out. We say our goodbyes.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been mostly on the delivery just didn't hit where we both wanted it to be. Now, you mentioned one tool, which is the accountability meeting. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, this is, I think, like this is something I'm trying to make sure I give people everything they need to succeed. And
Mm.
you mentioned it's something that you've been through and other people go through. I feel like this is a really hard challenge, right? Like, I guess it's two questions. Like, how much time do you give someone to kind of prove themselves? Or is that maybe the wrong question? Is it maybe what processes do you need to put them through to understand, okay, we're not a fit right now, even though you're a great person? Because it can be like, well, just one more week or just one more week. Like, I'm not sure. Is there something like, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, sorry, I'm trying to answer my own question, which I shouldn't be doing, but like a back on track plan. I don't,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to do that, I find, and it's also got some negative connotation. So I'm just wondering your experience with how do you figure out, is this a permanent skill issue that can't be fixed?
Yeah. So I would say the time part is a little tougher because it depends. Like, I've seen anything from like 2 weeks to like 2 months you give somebody, depending on the problem and severity. So, like, I would say the I do 3 steps every time. This is what I would coach to and what I've been given as when I'm not performing when I was an employee. First is the accountability meeting, which you just bring to the table and say, hey, I take ownership. Me as the leader, I probably wasn't clear. So I'm going to reset expectations. And it's like the accountability framework, which I learned is set expectations, uh, have a way to measure it, and then give feedback. So what that means is expectations is what to do, how to do it, and when it's due. So you just first you open the door and say, okay, here's the 3 things they need you to do. Everything else can drop, but these are your priorities. Send out emails, get back to them in 24 hours, whatever it is. Do you know how to do that? Because if not, it's totally like that's on me. I will train you. And if you ever not know, reach out. So we want to get confirmation. They know what to do. Do you know how to do this? If not, let's pause and reset it. And then do you know when it's due? Whether it's a daily report or every week. It's like, cool. Now we drew the line in the sand. It's like it is clear. Whether I write that in an email after, so it's all written down too from an HR standpoint. Now we set expectations. Now we want them to self-report. So the measurement component, it's like trying to lose weight. It's like if you don't weigh yourself ever and you're like, yeah, I'm keeping track and you don't, check how many times you lift the thing. It's like you're not managing it for real and it's not top of mind. So I always like to like set an expectation and then have the employee basically manage themselves by saying, hey, every day or every week, send me an update on these 3 things. This keeps it top of mind and they know they have to it reminds them to do the thing. Um, Now the feedback part comes when they're doing it. I'm like, good job when I see good results. And when they're not doing it, I say bad job. It's not bad job, but like, hey, fix this. And I've seen that first, if you set an accountability like meeting and you walk through the problems with the people and like where they're stuck, sometimes things come clearer for the employees, so they just solves it. Um, Usually within 2 weeks, you can kind of see if they're going up, flat, or just not getting better at all. If you see that they're flat, you can always just try to figure out what's the problem. If you see that they're getting worse, that's when you kind of have like this last chance meeting, which is the second step, which you basically come to the meeting with like, this is still happening. It's non-negotiable. It's part of your three jobs. Just like anyone else on the team, I would expect them to do their job, and the business serves us all. So like, just so you know, like you not doing this one thing impacts us by not we're not going to hit our marks, right? So it's you wouldn't want me to be light on Susan in that company or that department because then she'll hurt you. So I need this to be corrected. Otherwise, it's not gonna be a good conversation next time. And then that wakes up the last 10% of people that like literally uh could be saved. It's like kind of like more serious. And then if they don't fix it, you have the unfortunate last meeting, which is this is your last day. Um,
Yeah.
I usually it's basically like be very clear and then give them one more like this needs to fix itself. Like very clear you are this is your last chance. And then if they don't fix it, it's kind of like and that can range, how long you give somebody, but usually we don't want to give more than 3 months because it shouldn't take more than a quarter to fix any real like behavioral or metric problem. And I'm looking for progression, not perfection. Like if you don't hit the mark, okay, like you might hit the mark next quarter. But if you're at least going up, it's a good indication that things are working in the right direction. So
I think that's very fair. And it's also, you can feel good going through that process on the both sides, I feel personally.
that's the
Obviously,
intent.
it's never fun, but the
Yeah.
way you outlined it, I love the way you opened with, I'm taking ownership here. Because that's not what most people, I say most people experience, but like, I think all of us have had an experience where that's not been the attitude. It's like, why have you not done this? Like, yeah.
It just the reason for it is it allows like first off, you might have been your fault. Like we move so quick as business owners, so it's like I just want to create the space for them to be honest. Like, where is this not working? Like, I know I probably didn't do something right. It's like I actually want to solve it, which is why I bring it up that way. And then to your
Mm.
first point is I always say a good firing process, and I'm not HR law, but a good firing process is that no one was surprised. Like I do not want people surprised they're getting let go, because that means we failed them. Except if,
Yeah.
like, the business fails and, like, we need to fire somebody, that's a surprise. But, like, from a performance or culture fit, it's like, did we even try to save, the human?
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Let's get into hiring now. So let's say you've got 5 minutes with someone,
Yeah.
you're in an elevator, and they're like, oh my God, Frank, I'm having hiring problems. And it's
Yeah.
a very long elevator, but you got 5 minutes. How would you give them that go to hiring process that will just help them hire
Yeah.
just like A players? Like, how would you give them the high level, absolute stuff they need to do?
Yeah, I break the recruiting process into 3 steps. So it's qualifying the role, amplifying, and then evaluating. So what that means is before we go to the market and try to, hire a person, probably a good idea to actually understand what we're hiring for. And questions like what is the percentage breakdown of their job? Like how much will they spend? What are the things that they'll be doing and how much time goes into that? What are some of the requirements you'd expect this person to do without any training? It's like they should know how to do this coming in. Spending time actually qualifying the position, getting clarity is super helpful. And if people are like, hey, I don't understand, I'd be like, well, it's similar to dating. Like if you're going out to go find a girlfriend, in my case, um, and I went out to the market, found a bunch of girls, and I was like, okay, I care about my mom's opinion because I'm Italian. So I brought it back to my mom and I was like, all right, mom, these are the two I was thinking about. She's like, no, what the heck is this? I was like, "Oh, dang, okay, what did I do wrong?" And then she tells me all the feedback. I'm like, "Ah, okay, okay." And then I go back out to the market. Like, I just wasted so much time. What I could have done is just get internally aligned, talk to my mom. Ah, okay, yes, this, and then go out with that scorecard. And I think we fail sometimes to we rush to the hiring process because we're like, oh, we need to hire quickly. Like, and we rush that, skip that first step of actually understanding the position, which sometimes prevents us from hiring because we're like, Susan's just stuck because she doesn't have a good process. We don't need another person. So this allows us to both like pause and say, why are we hiring? What's the problem? And do what level of person do we need based on the problem we're trying to solve? Then the amplifying, this is where most companies benefit from working with us because what they're really looking for is like, how do we market this position and get more top of funnel? So the simple answer here is in my experience, you pull all the levers at your disposal. So that means like posting on like treating it like a marketing play, posting it on multiple like platforms, whether that's paid or social, going to referrals, asking your own network who they know and your own team who they know. And then lastly is the proper headhunting, which is like going out and stealing and poaching people from companies you know. And I think people make it more complicated than it needs to be on this side because it is as simple as like get one funnel. It's like get everyone to apply here, but post the job in a couple places. Find 20 companies that would probably employ your people that you know are like competitors in your space or just good training programs. Just go to their people's LinkedIn section and just message them and say, hey, you look like a potential good fit. We're doing this, we're hiring this role. Like, do you know anybody? And then they're like, well, I know somebody, me. And then you might
Yeah,
get
classic.
you might get a referral, or just they include
I've
themselves,
done that
and then
before.
it works. Yeah.
I've done it before, as in I messaged someone who I wanted to headhunt, and I used that question. But at least two hires I did, they actually had a genuine referral, and I hired them. So
Yeah.
it worked out.
Yeah, I've learned that because it first off softens the question. It does, and it holds a frame, so you're not like, "I want you." I'm just looking for somebody. And then the second is you can get a double. It's like you have two avenues to win. Either you can refer me somebody, or you're the person. Um, and then yeah, after you amplify it, ideally you have some process to evaluate the talent, which we talked about you and I with resume reviewing. So you don't have to review every single resume. How can you have some questions to do that?
I want to ask you about that because
Yeah,
I worked with founders, and they
yeah,
turn off the job when they have 200 applicants because like they're overwhelmed.
yeah,
And well, as soon as I heard that, I was like, no, what are you
I know,
doing?
I know.
For the person listening, it's like, oh, I've done that before. Like, can you explain to them? Because they don't know
Yeah.
what they don't know. Like, that doesn't have, that's not a problem, right? At
No,
least in my
that's
opinion. Yeah.
no, that's great. I just had someone do that the other day. They called me and they said, "I'm overwhelmed." And I said, "You don't need to hire me. Like, you're overwhelmed for this one little problem because you still want to review the 200 resumes. Go review the resumes, hire your 30K admin. Don't pay for my service. It makes no sense. Like, you can solve this."
So
Um,
what's happening there?
yeah, to finish my last thing, which is like the last part is evaluating, right? So like structured interview steps to make sure that you have. So the three things are like, how do you qualify the position, amplify it, and then when you get people in the process, have a clear set of steps and move people quickly through it. Most people, they and have a way to debrief and scorecard yourself, which is like objectively ask, like, was this person a fit based on what we're looking for? And it'll help you move quicker because I found that most people just don't have that scorecard, and then they're just like, I don't know if they're a fit. It's like if they're decent, move them through. If they're out, get them out. And then just like don't go slow in the middle of the process. Slow down at the end when you have to make a decision because you just want to get more opportunities to learn about the person, like discovery. So and then test assessments, trial periods, stuff like that. For what you're mentioning about resumes, I think there's the frame I have is like treating it like you're mining for gold, like through a river, which is like just have multiple filters. So like the first filter is if you don't have any questions in your application, I'd recommend putting a few. And the frame here is what is something that I would ask in an interview that if I asked them this and they answered it wrong, I'd rule them out. And that'd be like, how many years of experience do you have doing this? Or how, like, have you used this software before? It's like, why don't we put a few of those in the application screening question? So when they answer, it's like, oh, they're not a fit because they have 2 years experience instead of 6. It helps you like lead score your applications. So the first step would be like review application questions. The second step would be like quickly review the resume, but look for reasons to rule them out, not to rule them in. So I always adopted the frame of like find the red flags. If I see a couple, they're already out because this will changes the scope of like if I don't find anybody that if I find people that don't have red flags, like that's a good sign. But if I'm looking to try to see why they're a fit, it actually just takes way longer.
Yeah,
So
for
I want to
sure.
like filter it through. And then the last one would be now that I have a short list, I will try to figure out is this list really good? So I always just think about it. Indeed and LinkedIn give you these features where it's like hell yes, maybe, or no. And each step I'm like application questions. Hell yes, maybe, no. Okay. Now I have a list of maybes and yeses. I start with the yeses. Anyway, how do these look? Yes, that's definitely yes. Now back down to maybe or no. And I just like now I do the review of the resume quickly. Then I review the maybes. And at the end, I'm trying to get like 3 to 5 out of 100 people. It's usually 3 to 5. Like these look great. 8 to 12 maybes, and then the rest are no. And it usually takes me 100. I can do in 1 hour 100 applications because I have a process to like I'm going to look for one or two things per step versus trying to review each resume and each application in its entirety and then restart that whole process again when I could have ruled them out with these little quick filtering. And my rule of thumb is when you get someone that fits your A column, the good fit, I invite them to the interview right away. Like I invite them first, like prioritize those because those could be the people that solve your problem right away, and then you go down to the maybes. Um, like the two things I see people fail with is they don't create the time to review the resumes, they don't have the process, and then once they review them, they're not like inviting them to interview right away. Like if this was a customer trying to come into your funnel, you probably call them right away, speed to lead. So I'm like the same thing applies to candidates because the best ones will be off the market in 8 days, 8 to 10 days. That's what the average is. and it's not worth losing them. So that's what I would say from resume review. Like I had to, there was like thousands of resumes coming in, so I had to kind of get good at how do I. You're gonna make mistakes also, candidly. Like it's not like you're perfect, but I rather I'll err on the side of like I'd rather meet one more person that might not be a fit than just be like, yeah, no, I don't like them. They're out. It's like that might have been the person. They just didn't write a good resume. So
For sure. 'Cause I've
yeah,
just been through this and I interviewed personally around, I think, like 16 people. Well, actually, no, I invited to interview 16 people, but three were off the market. And I thought I was being quick, but I took a week to reply because I extended my revision time because I was busy. And that was like, wow, I just did 7 days extra and I lost, quote unquote, three people in the
it
interview
happens.
process. Also, one thing that you highlighted was the first interview doesn't need to be a freaking 1 hour call, of course.
No. Yeah,
Like it was like, well, 25 to 30 minutes for me.
yeah,
And I even had, actually, no, I lie. It was 20 minutes. And some of them I did back to back. And I made it very clear. It's like, guys, we have 20 minutes. We're going to spend as much time as we can, getting to know you. And I tried to really, because you gave me some feedback and you kind of told me off where it's like, why are you asking that question? Because it was like a question where within an hour of, sorry, like a minute of training, they would understand. Instead, I
yeah,
should have been asking, like, how much volume have you done with this
yeah,
problem? I was like, yeah, that's a much better question. And I had a bunch of those questions. And I just think it might be useful for someone listening. Like, I just had a spreadsheet, Google, and I had each of those questions. And as I'm interviewing, I'm just writing rough notes for each question. At the end, I had like 13 and I just scored each thing. And I
yeah,
tried to be fancy. I took the transcript and said, add any context I missed. And then I used like Claude Cowork and he went and updated my sheet and I felt like a god. It didn't save that much time, but like basically, I felt like I had a really objective view of each of these questions.
yeah,
And even if it's not, it wasn't perfect, by the way. Sometimes like my notes weren't perfect or I kind of overscored, but it's very nice viewing it like that, where I never did that before. For me, it was just like, that was okay. That felt good. But then some people I remember I really enjoyed the interview, but then when I looked at the objective scores, it's like, but they did not score nearly as high as this person. So I was just over indexing on how I felt during the interview. And then if I remember right, I was speaking a lot on that interview. I was like, okay, there you go, Harry. So it was like you cannot go by feeling. I guess that's what I learned by doing that process, being really objective.
yeah. I learned this from my HR leader who worked in corporate for 20 years, and she gave me a really good framework of like good, better, best, which
Hmm.
is ask, write the question you want to ask, and then you personally, before you do these interviews, write down what's a good answer, what's a better answer, and what's the best answer. And
Nice.
this will allow you to start to bifurcate because then you're just sitting there listening for the cues. As an example, like the simple, like anything below good is out, right? So a good answer is like, yes, I've done that. I have 5 years experience doing it. A better answer is they start to bring metrics into place. So like, yeah, I have like proof that I can explain. Yes, I've done that, and here's a story or example. The best answer would include some type of like they're being proactive. They built stuff from scratch. They solved the problem before it was a problem, which is proactive. So it starts to like let you figure out, depending on the level of talent you're hiring, it's like how good of the person are they objectively. And this is a framework you can just plug into GPT and be like, hey, just tell me, fill this out. And then what you're really looking for is like, where did they hit? Did they say the things that align to this kind of framework? So then it's very objective. But going in with that kind of rubric already mapped out of what you think good answers are is helpful. And also, like you alluded to, prioritizing. So it's like I used to just ask like 5 questions in total as a technical side on the screening. And I would do the hardest one, like one of the harder ones first. And if you got that wrong, I already know we're done. Like I might just do a couple of questions just to make it not like feel like it's a 10-minute interview, but like you already messed up. Like so I just try to like top grade like let's just start with the stuff that like if you get this wrong it's already not going to be good.
Can I ask you? So I tried this and I still don't have an answer. Where
Yeah.
I tried to help the candidate, where they replied with no story. And I
Okay.
interrupted and said, sorry, just to clarify, I'm looking for a story here of like where
Yeah.
you've done this before. And then the
Yeah.
answer was better. And then
Okay.
I'm thinking, okay, when I did that, I was like, wait a minute. People who use metrics and stories, therefore, have the understanding that that matters. But then because I did that, I was like, I'm wondering if a candidate it's just forgetting because they're not just a good interviewee, that they
Yeah,
can bring all these amazing stories they had. So I'm wondering, how much do you help the candidate tell their story during the interview process? Because that makes me feel like, well, I only have you for 20 minutes. I want to get the most out of you, but also I can't just spoon feed you, like, tell me exactly what happened there. And I feel like it's a weird balance I have to play. I'm wondering, like, how do you approach
yeah.
that? How do you get the best out of a candidate?
Yeah, so a lot of things came through my head. Number one, the first thing is the level of experience the person has and the level I'm hiring for dictates how much I'm willing to help. Meaning, if you're a COO and I ask you a question and you're rambling, I might ask you like, "Hey, can you? I'm trying to look for this point." I might give a little bit of suggestion, but it's like that's already a knock. Cause like, damn, that's how you're gonna just naturally show up in leadership meetings, right? It's
Mm,
like that's your natural. It's like you haven't learned how to present, as an example. But like an entry level candidate, it's like they just never done this before. It's like I'll give them a little more grace. The frame I have is I don't want them to be good at interviewing. I want them to be good at the job. So like I have to make sure I'm asking clear questions. And yes, I will raise my hand and say, "Hey, I'm sorry that you went down this path. I'm looking for this." So I will either I ask a more clarifying question, sorry, not clarifying, ask a more clear question, and even maybe say, "Hey, what I'm looking for is to hear, how you did it and what the results were. Go." And then maybe I don't say that, and I ask in the middle of their story, they're like, "Hey, love what you're saying. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure we have time in the interview. Can you just tell me a little bit? I just want to hear, what were the results of your thing, and what did you do to get those results?" And that's kind of the theme I'm looking for all the rest of the answers. And I try to just see like if I say that feedback, do they apply it for the next set? If not, that's already a bad sign.
sweet.
But the feeling of like I don't care if you're good at interviewing because some people are good at interviewing and the job it doesn't if you're a recruiter, you should be good at interviewing. But if you're not a recruiter and you're just, let's say, a technical person, it's like I don't want to have Elon Musk come in my interview process. I'm sitting there, I'm like, nah, that was an awkward interview. I'm like, he really kind of just sat there in silence too much. Like, I don't like that. Pass. And then that was the guy that would have got you 2 billion in 2 billion in
Yeah,
enterprise value in 6 months. It's like I try to prioritize just getting the answers out of them and guiding them a bit, but to a point where if they are coach once or twice, but past that, it's kind of tough because then it's like they're not listening or not learning, and it's kind of hard because you do have these pockets of opportunities to show what you can do. Um, so my short answer is I coach a bit. The higher level the role, the less coaching I give, just because I expect them to know how to do this. So
great. I think
yeah,
to finalize the kind of hiring system, because we've actually covered a lot, is the task and the assessment. So
oh
I
yeah,
find, because I happen to work with a lot of founders with content, and they tell me their hiring processes, and some of them, like, thing that irks me is like they hire salespeople and they've never done sales personally, and then they expect them to do stuff and they don't know what they're doing, and there was no presentation, there was no task. I was like, what are you doing? And I'm wondering, like, for example, for me, when I tried to get a job, I presented my 90-day plan. That was my take home task, and that
yeah,
made intuitive sense. But I feel like some people are forgetting that with some roles, it's natural to have a task, like an artist role, but you can actually do tasks with like a lot of roles. So, and it's actually a bit of a, from the candidate side, like, there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, there's way too many tasks. They're doing too many take-home tasks. Like they're trying to take advantage of us." So I'm wondering, from the hiring perspective, like,
yeah.
how do you recommend people use take-home assessments and tasks? And do you recommend them? If so, how would you use them?
Yeah, so I'd say at a high level, I want to be sure that we're using tasks for things we can't assess in an interview because some people just give someone 4 hours of work and it's like we could have asked them in an interview. The thing that comes to mind because I'm always trying to learn more about recruiting is I was listening to a podcast from he was the CEO of Tesla at the time, and I use this in my. He just validated more of the way he said it was great, which is why I'm bringing it up. But he validated what we always like to do, which is in interviews. I want to think about it like this: I want them to tell me about a problem they solved. Then I want to see how they would help me solve my problem. So the reason we like to do this is I like to in an interview bring a real meaty problem and be like, "Here's what I'm currently dealing with. You can ask any questions you want, which will indicate how like I wonder how they navigate this problem, and then what would you do in this case?" The higher level the role, the more important. And or I'll say it differently. If the experience you're requiring Well, then lean in on that being the part of the assessment, which is like, we're going to have this conversation when you start. So I might as well do it now in the interview to see how you would solve a problem. It one helps the candidate get more context of like, oh, that's a problem I'm coming in to solve. So they understand more about the business. And number two is like you get to see how they work. So there's really two frames here. One is you can do it live, which is bring real problems and see how they solve it, whether that's data for a director of marketing and saying, like, here's this month and last month's leads and ROAS. Are you seeing any trends? What would you do? And if they can't read the data, it's like, that's already a problem. Like, that's one of the requirements in the job. Um, and then you see how they think about strategy and what they pick up on. There's some parts where it's like, I'm not going to watch you edit a video in the interview. So I will just send you some of the clips as a video editor, and then you can come back to me with the clips edited. So I'd say I try to peel off a piece of the job that they will do, something that is something I don't want to train on. I want to just gain a level of understanding of how far off they are from what I'm expecting, and I give it to them to do. Examples would be like a video editor editing video, a sales manager getting 3 sales calls and reviewing the sales calls from other like the leaders, the other
That's a
sales
good one.
associates, and saying like, hey, how would you rank these people, and like what things would you give them feedback on? It's like just take part of what they'll do in their day to day and just give it to them as work to do, with the understanding. Ideally, it's not more than 2 or 3 hours of work, because they have other things going on. Too much friction
Of
might
course.
lose people. Yeah. So
Sweet. Yeah, and just so everyone who's listening to this who thinks that's a waste of time, absolutely not. I did writing task, best thing ever. You see so much, and yeah, it was a 2 3 hour task just to write 2 posts, and I gave a lot in the brief, and it worked really well because you can clearly see how much time they spent on the task, and you can also it's a weird thing where you can test for skill, yes, but you can also test for how much they want it, and sometimes that's also useful. I really you can really tell how much they want it in the test.
yeah, it reminds me of Golden Sachs because they're notorious for having like 30 plus interviews, and I'm like, they're not evaluating you. They just want to see how much you want it at that point. Like, you don't need 30 interviews to know if someone's a fit. I believe they're just putting you through the ringer to
Like
see how
Navy
much you.
SEALs, right? It's like, will
Yeah,
you survive?
yeah, and that's fair. So if they can get away with 30 interviews and people still working, going through that process, you can get away with one test assessment because the ones that don't want to do it don't really want to work for you. They just want a job. So
Great. So on hiring, I have a few quick fire questions, and I'd love
sure,
to know more about kind of your business and where you're taking it because you have your own business. You're going to be doing hiring, and I'm curious.
sure.
So when it comes to your favorite interview question, what is it?
It's my first one, which is basically after I introduce the job and stuff, I ask them based on your understanding of the job and the job description, walk me through why you're a good fit. And the reason I ask that is it allows I see how prepared they are. I've had someone ask me, "Can you tell me what the job is again? Like, what am I applying for?" I was like, "That was the worst interview I've ever had in my life." But I was like, "What?" Um, so the best candidates show up prepared and answer the question and hit on the things that I would probably ask down the stream. So it's a
Nice.
very open-ended question, but it already gives me so much context on, are they prepared? And when they answer this question, do they understand what I care about in this role? So, and then it kind of goes from there. But that's my first one.
Great.
Yeah.
And in terms of the first interview, who should do that? Like, some people, like I think Musk famously said like he's on pretty much every interview or something. I don't know if it's the first one, but then you have like they should only be on the last one. So I'm curious, like who should be
Yeah.
on the first interview?
Yeah, if so it depends on the size of your company, right? So I always say if it's just you, unfortunately just you, if you have more people on your team, I'd say you want to protect your time as much as possible. So whether that's an EA, someone outside of the department entirely of like it just maybe customer success person, I always say like whoever has the time that has a very good personality because they set the tone for the process, and they don't need to know the job in the screening interview. It takes actually a lot of time to screen candidates. That's why you want to protect the founder and leadership time. You would just install some questions and give them the rubric of like, here's a good answer, here's a bad answer. Just send them my way as they go through it. But usually it's like an EA. Um, if you have a recruiter, obviously a recruiter, or even just someone in a different department that has a good personality. And the reason why it's important is that they set the tone. I've had many times where I had someone interview with me and they're like, Frank, because I met you and you had a good energy, I was more interested in moving forward versus if I was like, the typical recruiter is like, so why do you do that? Tell me more about that. And like treating it like it's not pleasant. And you have to think about it as like a sales funnel. So ideally someone friendly, great tonality, engaging, and has the capacity to take on they would represent you well, right? So whoever that would be in your company, put them on the front lines to do that work to protect to gatekeep your time. Cause I'd say like probably 40% of candidates will even pass their interview, which if they meet 30 people, it's like
It's
15
15
hours of it.
hours.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've experienced it. Very good feeling. And when I was crunching again and I had to do them myself, yeah, I think there's a marginal benefit of doing it yourself. Like I didn't see any real difference because you can always watch the call if you do record them. Or one thing I found really well is you can actually just give them a 1 minute recap of the business, and the person who's screening can like say, "Hey, by the way, um, I usually maybe it's best to do that after you ask your question so they don't cheat. But like, here's where we're going, and it's like to your point, the sales funnel.
Yeah.
Here's the reason this is super exciting. It doesn't have to be you, the founder, because I thought it had to be, but after seeing someone do it and it's like, and they all really enjoyed it, I was like, okay, so anyone can do that.
By the way, two things on that. Number one is I actually
Please,
started my interview by saying those things. Like, hey, here's the company, here's
perfect,
the opportunity, here's your three
nice.
main responsibilities. Cause I want to kind of make sure it's a good experience for them. They have clarity. Like, does this still sound like you're interested? Great. Cool. So based on what I said in the job description, why do you think you're a fit? I just want to see
They
where they
have no
take.
choice, so they have
And then
no
as we
excuses.
yeah, and then as we scaled, I realized like, why am I saying the same five? I'm spending 3 minutes explaining the same thing. So we kind of recorded that and just sent that as a video prior to watch, which then allows you to
Ah,
see how much, yeah, people prepare. So
nice. I'll steal that. That's a good idea. I sent them a podcast of mine for optional viewing. Definitely, that is better. So, as in a short video. Great. Final quick fire question. So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned when working with leaders for hiring?
hmm. I'd say it's been a repeated lesson. It's like don't compromise the culture. Meaning sometimes you find someone that's really good, like really good talent, but the culture fit's kind of like in question. And there's this particular person we had in mind where we were struggling to hire someone for this key role in the company, and they had 70% of the culture fit. We're like, this one area is just it just needs some coaching. Like we just need them. Like they're okay, but they're a little rough around the edges. And we're like, well, guess what? Well, they're gonna work in the building, so we can probably coach them up. Well, 9 months later, they did not change. And no matter how much, immersion we put, how much coaching we gave them, that part of them did not change. They're 30 years old. Like that is who they are. It's not something they wanted to change, nor did they probably expect to have to change it. And we ended up letting that person go. And what was left from that was actually more, I think like mold in a house. Like it metastasized. Like they
Yeah.
had been, bringing this energy to other people in the company. People, you fired the right person when everyone's like calmer, doing better, and like
Oh my
happy.
god.
Because this person kind of put, a lot of negative out there, not intentionally. Just their nature was a little bit more.
Yeah.
They were not a fit. So I'd say like don't compromise the culture fit because it hurts way more than you might anticipate initially, and it's very hard to change people. That's like I
So
always
hard.
my framework is like who you are is more important than how you do something, and how you do something is more important than what you know. Because I can teach you what to do, I can train you on how to do it, but I'm not your therapist. Like if the characteristics of who you are not a fit, like your behaviors will impact everything. So,
No, I really resonates. Like my first two like 9 to 5s were in British companies, and
mm,
both of them stereotype. I know, sorry, shoot me, but there was one person who was just a complainer, and it's just so much of an energy vampire when they just complained, and it was the British style of complaining where it's like even the weather was something to complain about. It's like I don't need this every day, bro. There's always
uh,
something wrong, and it just spreads. And then other people complain about things that aren't problems. Like a big one for me is complaining about the customers. I can't. It's the
oh
worst thing ever. It's like, bro, the reason you're here is because they're and the things they're complaining about is like client is the hero. Why are they doing that? Maybe they're having a bad day. Oh,
yeah,
it really gets me that one.
yeah, you you have that's a good example. It's tough because it's not something that is easily like it's not something that you put on a piece of paper and say you can track the ROI or the risk or the reward for it, but it is fully felt within an organization and um its results. Like
Sweet.
yeah. Mhm.
Alrighty. So you just dropped a bunch of sauce, and I want to ask you about so tank recruiting. So can you maybe quickly share like why did you start tank recruiting? What have you been up to? You obviously helped me personally, but I'd love to hear it from you. Kind of like why did you start the company and kind of what you've been up to since.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was help people that are good people earn the talent they deserve. And I felt like when I worked with a lot of founders, they didn't understand how to recruit people, and their whole business was like struggling because of that. Like whether they were turning away business, couldn't scale, felt like they couldn't breathe, right? And like they literally didn't have the time. So my aim was to give people kind of the process at which to recruit. And the big unlock for my clients is usually like it's more of a marketing and sales funnel than it is anything else. It's like you know how to do this, you just haven't done it before. It's like we can guide you to the promised land. It's not as hard as you think. Um, and really, I work with mostly small business owners that don't have a process in place that are either not scaling because they keep mishiring. Like the whole company's like the director of sales is they've hired six and they haven't hired the right one, or like service based businesses where like they literally like Frank, we can't hire a tax manager, so we have to turn away business every time it comes our way because we don't have the capacity on the back end. So those are kind of the two main lanes. Um, yeah, and it's we work very fortunate to work with companies globally. So like whether it's Poland, Italy, a lot in America as well. It's like the systems. I'm not HR law, but the systems into which to recruit people. We install those and work with you to fish, so to speak. So
Yeah, love it. He worked even with Cyprus. I've hired someone from the Netherlands and Czechia. So yeah, no, it was a great experience. And yeah, I'm wondering, how's it been? You're a founder now.
yeah, so I'd say I'd say you have to some like I touched the stove. I've said that in a post in public before, which is like I was had the opportunity to coach a lot of people on how to do a lot of this stuff, and I think it's way different when you're the one doing it. I made mistakes. I put my head in the sand and like don't look up at the business, and I was able to recognize it because pain is very obvious when you touch a stove, and knew how to solve it. But I think generally it's going great. I think I just had to learn and make the mistakes that other founders make so that I can continue to scale. And I'm very grateful that I had a somewhat of a brand or a reputation behind me because I feel like if I didn't have some headwind behind me, I probably would have not honestly, I probably wouldn't have made the mistakes of overhiring. But funny enough, I got excited with some revenue and did what I love to do, which is bring on people and realized that that's not always the direct revenue generator. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, mate, you've been huge help to me. I know I repeated a lot, but I just wanted you to remember. So I really appreciate you. Um, for people who've just met you through this podcast, they want to learn more, maybe connect, reach out. What's the best way to chat with you?
Yeah, so I'd say, I mean, you can check out my LinkedIn, like Frank Lofaro. I did put a 37-minute YouTube video breaking down how to recruit. Basically, like all of my like highlights and hits. It's you can just type in tank recruiting and you'd find that it's free publicly for people with a resource you can get as well. But those are the main two places: LinkedIn, my website, Tank Recruiting, and or the YouTube for the video.
Love it. Nice. Frank, thank you so much. It's been great.
Appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you. See ya.
All righty. Subscribe, everyone. Goodbye.